"Don't touch the car. You'll stain the leather with those filthy hands." The voice sliced through the hot noon air like a blade. A black SUV, polished like a mirror, had just stopped on the dirt road that crossed a forgotten village. Inside, a woman in sunglasses and a pale dress. Everything about her screamed luxury, even the silence. Outside, a thin boy, dusty feet, held a makeshift cart made from a wooden box filled with small, shiny red apples polished with an old rag. The boy blinked fast, swallowed hard, and still managed to smile. "Ma'am, they're sweet. I picked them this morning. You can choose." Before his hand reached the car window, the bodyguard, a huge man with a thick neck and a gleaming watch, stepped forward and shoved him by the chest. The cart shook, one wheel squeaked, and 2 apples fell, rolling through the dirt until they stopped, bruised. The boy rushed to pick them up, knelt, blew the dust off, like apologizing to a friend. The dry road answered with a brief gust of wind, lifting a tiny swirl of dust. Inside the car, the woman sighed, annoyed. She took off her glasses, cold eyes, the kind that ask questions, already knowing the answers. "These apples, are they washed?" "I washed them in the river real early," said the boy, gently holding the least damaged one as if it were fragile. "Then I wiped them clean. My grandma—" "I didn't ask for your family story," she cut him off. "I asked for a clean apple." The driver, an older man with thinning hair and eyes that barely lifted from the steering wheel, tried to help. "Mrs. Helena, should I go into town? The market has imported apples." She tilted her chin toward him, just enough to show disapproval. "No, I stopped because I wanted to. I want to see what this boy calls sweet." The boy offered the apple with the care of someone giving a Christmas gift. The bodyguard took it first, inspected it like a health officer, and handed it to his boss. Helena bit off a tiny piece, as if afraid to contaminate her mouth. The juice barely dripped. The smell rose. Something of childhood, of an old kitchen, of a wood stove, and she stiffened even more as if the pleasant taste offended her. "It's acceptable," she said, dabbing her lips with a handkerchief. "How much?" "3 reals a dozen, ma'am." The bodyguard laughed, a short laugh, the kind people use when mocking for sport. 3 reals a dozen. That's what you pay for spoiled bananas, kid." The boy gripped the cart with both hands, standing straight as dust drew lines on his legs. "I picked them this morning. That's my price for everyone." Helena raised an eyebrow. "Everyone? And who exactly is everyone to you? People who count coins?" "I don't count coins. I buy trust." She handed back the apple, now marked by her small, perfect bite, to the bodyguard. "Throw it away." He obeyed, tossing it into the bushes. The boy's eyes followed it, as if part of his grandma's lunch had just vanished. "If you want to sell to people like me," Helena went on, "learn to wrap, label, and talk less. No one wants to touch what you've touched." The boy breathed through his nose, staring at his fingers, streaked with clean dirt. Then he looked at her again, steady, without anger, which was somehow worse than if he had shouted, "You don't need to buy it, ma'am, but you didn't have to throw it away. It tasted like home." Helena smiled slightly, amused. "Home? Yes, mine. It tastes like the shade of an apple tree when the sun's burning hot. My grandma says that. She can't chew much anymore, so I pick the softer ones for her. And you think telling me all that is charming?" The driver cleared his throat, trying to change the air. "Mrs. Helena, we've got a meeting at 2. She ignored him. The silence stretched. The wind brought the scent of burnt grass from afar, and a skinny dog crossed the road slowly, like it owned the place. The boy held the bent handle of his cart, waiting for her verdict as if waiting for rain. "How old are you?" 12. "And you go to school?" "When I can. I missed today." "Why?" "'Cause my grandma, she got dizzy. I needed to sell earlier." "So your grandma's sick." "She's just tired." "Tired." Helena repeated the word as if tasting an unfamiliar fruit. "Being tired is a choice, boy. I get tired too, and I don't skip my duties." "I can't skip when you need me, ma'am," the driver murmured, too low, too fast, to turn into conversation. The bodyguard glanced at his watch, impatient. "Can we go now? We've wasted enough time." The boy inhaled again. Want to take two? I'll give one as a gift for you to share with someone on the road." Helena tilted her head, surprised. For a split second, her mask slipped just a fraction. "You're offering me a gift? So you'll remember me next time you pass by. I'm always here around this time. You think I'll come back? I don't know. But the road always comes back to us." This time, the driver lifted his eyes. The phrase hit him differently, like a small, persistent bell inside his chest. The bodyguard snorted. Helena put her glasses back on, restoring her stone face. "No one offers me anything unless I ask for it, and when I want something, I buy it. Today, I want nothing." She gave a small flick of her wrist, and the bodyguard understood. End of scene. The boy nodded once, like someone saying, "It's fine, I'll keep going." He placed the apple back in the box, adjusted the cloth, and straightened the wheel that had bent from the shove. "Can I just ask one thing?" he said, as they were about to roll the window up. "No, it's quick. If you ever see a sign that says river closed, don't wash your hands there. The water's been weird after the rain. My grandma said—" The window slid up. The rest of the sentence vanished into the air. The SUV pulled away slowly, its rear tires spitting dust, and for 2 seconds the boy's reflection lingered on the shiny surface of the car, small, framed by the white sky. The driver glanced in the mirror. He saw the kid pick up the 2 bruised apples, blow the dirt off again, and in a gesture that made no sense to cruelty, set them carefully in the corner of the box, as if saving the best of what was left for someone he loved. Helena leaned back in her seat, loosened the belt slightly, and closed her eyes. "The taste is fine," she murmured, almost to herself. But behind the word fine, something persisted, a hint of childhood she didn't remember living. A memory rose, a hand, she couldn't tell whose, peeling fruit over an old tiled sink. The blade of a knife scraping thin skin. A woman's brief laugh, the radio murmuring. She opened her eyes, like someone waking from a dream they don't want to admit to. "Want me to grab some imported ones in town?" the driver asked, trying to bring reality back into place. "No, I wanted to stop here. I wanted to see up close." "See what, Mrs. Helena?" "How someone sells what they should keep." "No one keeps what they need to eat," the driver said softly. The road stretched straight for a few miles before disappearing into a curve. The SUV sped up, but Helena turned her face toward the window, as if searching for something she'd already left behind. The dust settled again. Behind them, the boy pushed his cart against the short wind, and the skinny dog walked beside him, wagging a shy tail. The sunlight hit the apples, making them glimmer like small red constellations in the dry land. "Write this down," Helena said, breaking the silence. "Tell the foundation team to map this area. Kids working on the roadside. I don't like the image." "Where should we start, ma'am?" "Start where it hurts," she said, not realizing her order had 2 meanings. The car vanished, and the road once again belonged to the dust, the wind, and the boy. He stopped under a thin tree, pulled a crumpled paper bag from his pocket, and took out a small piece of bread. Broke it in half, ate 1 piece, and tucked the other back into his pocket. Someone needed it more than he did. He looked toward the curve, as if cars could appear out of nowhere, then up at the sky, searching for a cloud. There wasn't any. As he started walking again, an elderly voice called from a small house ahead, "Luan, don't forget to bring clean water." "On my way, Grandma," he answered lightly, in a tone that didn't match his calloused hands. He pushed the cart, the bent wheel singing its metal complaint. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw 2 younger girls waving from a crooked fence. He lifted an apple and, with a practiced gesture, tossed one to each of them. Perfect arcs, as if poverty couldn't interrupt the choreography of kindness. Far ahead, in the SUV's quiet cabin, Helena touched the handkerchief to her lips again, as if trying to erase any trace of that bite. She couldn't. Instead, she felt the simple sweetness refuse to fade, and along with it, the stubborn image of those dirty hands, not from filth, but from work, holding a small, round, red world. 3 reals a dozen, she whispered. this time without sarcasm, and something inside her bit into her own pride. The curve swallowed the road, and with it, the chance for an apology. Behind her dark glasses, Helena realized she had lost something no amount of money could buy, peace with her own mouth after what she'd said. She wouldn't admit it, not now, but the apple she had despised had already left its taste, and taste is just memory that refuses to go away. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of a rain that hadn't yet fallen, and without knowing, the two, the woman who had everything and the boy who sold what he needed, were already bound by the same invisible thread. That thing life charges us for when we think we can walk past untouched. Who was that boy, to make a simple flavor challenge a lifetime of certainty? And why, for the first time in years, did Helena feel like maybe she wasn't in control of anything at all? It was 10:07 p.m. when Helena arrived home. The electronic gate closed behind the car with a metallic echo that rang through the empty courtyard. The mansion was spotless, but felt like a museum. Automatic lights switched on one by one, revealing marble, mirrors, and silence. She walked down the wide hallways, her heels echoing like old memories. No laughter, no voices, only the sound of her own steps. She passed through the indoor garden, where expensive flowers were replaced every week by gardeners who never knew her name. In the huge portrait hanging in the living room, a smiling family stared back with lifeless eyes. Her late husband still seemed to judge her from the frame. Helena looked away. His voice still echoed in her head. Never show weakness, not for a second. In the kitchen, the table was set, for one person only. A dinner prepared by a staff that had already gone home. Fancy dishes, imported wine, and no appetite. She served herself mechanically, but the flavor was lifeless. Every bite reminded her that a stomach can be full while the heart stays completely empty. As she ate, the memory of the boy on the road returned. The dirty hands, the calm eyes, the phrase echoing, "tastes like home." Home, that word burned, because she had many, yet none where she truly lived. She climbed the stairs and entered her office. The shelves were packed with trophies and certificates, awards, tributes, old headlines printed with her name in gold. Businesswoman of the Year. The woman who multiplied an empire. But suddenly, all of it looked fake. She sat down in the armchair, opened her laptop, and stared at the schedule for the next day. Meetings, contracts, launches. No space to breathe, no space to feel. The virtual assistant blinked. Reminder, flight to Europe for the philanthropy event. She shut the computer. Philanthropy, helping the poor to look good in pictures. Perfect irony. She took her glass of wine and stepped out onto the balcony. The city glowed below. Bright windows, distant horns, life pulsing. Outside, the world moved. Inside, everything stood still. For a moment, a cold wind blew, and she remembered another road years ago, back when she still rode the bus, a lunchbox on her lap, dreaming of a better life. She had promised that once she got rich, she'd never struggle again. And she had kept that promise. But in doing so, she had left something far more important behind. Her humanity. The doorbell rang. Helena startled. It was the driver. "Sorry for coming this late, Mrs. Helena. Just wanted to let you know I dropped the car off for maintenance." She nodded coldly. "All right." "Mind if I say something?" he asked carefully. "Go ahead. You seem different today." "On the way back." "Different how?" "Quieter. You kept looking back the whole time." "Did something happen with that boy?" Helena took a moment to answer. "Nothing. Just an unimportant encounter." "I see." He turned to leave but muttered before stepping out. "Sometimes it's those encounters that change everything." She pretended not to hear, but the words stayed, circling her like a shadow. Later that night, she lay in the huge, cold bed, picked up her phone and scrolled through social media. Photos of her at events, on trips, at dinners, hundreds of likes. No real conversations. Her finger stopped on an old memory, a photo with her husband, smiling in front of a new car. His comment was still there. "Everything we achieved together." But they hadn't. He inherited, she multiplied, and in between, Love suffocated under numbers. She closed her eyes, but her mind refused to rest. The image of the boy kept coming back like an echo. The dust, the dirty hands, the red apple, the phrase, "The road always comes back to us." Helena turned to her side, annoyed. Bold little kid! But deep down, she knew it wasn't just that. It was a reminder, a mirror, a crack in her armor. At sunrise, the housekeeper entered the room to open the curtains. "Did you sleep well, ma'am?" "As always," she lied. "Would you like breakfast?" "No, I'm leaving early." Helena got up, went to the mirror, and looked closely. For the first time in years, she noticed she was tired. Not in her body, but in her soul. The flawless face hid the exhaustion of someone who had fought so hard to win that she'd forgotten why she started fighting. On the drive to the office, the driver tried to make small talk. "Beautiful sunrise today, huh?" Beauty doesn't pay the bills. Maybe not, but sometimes it reminds us life's more than bills. She glanced sideways, irritated. "You've been reading motivational quotes?" "No, ma'am. Just been looking outside more." Helena turned her gaze to the window. The same alleys, the same people selling fruit, the same tired faces. But something felt different. Maybe it was that, for the first time, she was actually seeing them. At a red light, a boy was selling candy. He looked about the same age as the one from the road. She reached for her purse, hesitated, and then just watched. The boy tapped politely on the glass. "Want to help, ma'am?" She rolled the window down, took a candy, and asked, "Do you go to school?" "When I've got time left," the boy said with a grin. The light turned green. The car moved. Helena closed the window and took a deep breath. For some reason, her heart sped up, as if the universe had started repeating the same message in different voices. At the company, the employees greeted her with their usual fear. No one spoke unless spoken to. No one smiled sincerely. It was a factory of profit, not people. In the elevator, she caught her own reflection and, for a moment, wished she was someone else. Someone simpler. Someone who could laugh without it being seen as weakness. In the meeting room, her assistant handed her a folder. "Report on the social foundation, ma'am." "The one supporting poor children." She opened the document, glanced at the photos of smiling kids, and realized what bothered her. None of them had the same light in their eyes as that boy on the road. She put the folder away, stood up silently, and looked out the window. Below, the city kept living, without needing her. And for the first time, Helena felt a fear that no amount of wealth could fix. The fear that she had built everything except meaning. In the reflection on the glass, the powerful businesswoman was gone. There was only a woman left, lost inside what she once called success. And deep down, where memories sleep, the face of a boy with an apple began to light up something she thought was dead: doubt. And that was only the beginning. The sun hadn't even risen when Luan was already on his feet. The neighbor's rooster crowed too early, and the cool dawn breeze slipped through the cracks in the wooden window. The roof creaked with the wind, and the cold concrete floor made the boy's feet ache a little, but he was used to it. The house was small, made of exposed brick and old roof tiles. The smell of weak coffee mixed with the scent of medicine coming from the next room. "Grandma, I'm already up," he said, tying the worn-out shoelaces on his sneakers. "Don't forget your jacket, Luan. It's chilly this morning." "All right, Grandma. I'll be back before 9. Her voice was gentle but frail. Donna Teresa had more wrinkles than good memories. Since her health had worsened, she spent her days lying down, staring at the ceiling, coughing that dry cough that never went away. Even so, her eyes came alive whenever she saw her grandson. Luan grabbed the wooden cart he had built himself from pieces of a broken crib. The front wheel was crooked, but he managed. Inside was a box of fruit and an old cloth covering the apples he had picked from a tree his father had planted years ago. His father. The word still hurt. Luan barely remembered his face, only a tall man who smelled of oil and grease, who used to lift him in his arms and say, "One day, this orchard will be yours, champ, and you'll understand what it means to build something with your own hands." But his father never came back. He left for work one day in the city and disappeared. Donna Teresa used to say he was wronged, but she never explained what that meant. Some people pay for mistakes that aren't theirs, my boy, but the truth always finds its way home. Luan believed that. It was that sentence that got him out of bed every morning, pushing the cart and walking miles to the roadside to sell his apples. Along the way, he passed by small houses. Everyone knew him. "Morning, apple boy," shouted Mr. Jawam, the cobbler. "Got one for me today, Luan?" asked Mrs. Dalva, who always bought on credit. "Sure do, but only pay when you can, okay?" he replied with a smile that somehow made the world feel lighter. By the time he reached the road, the sun was rising, painting the orchard behind him gold. The river flowed lazily beside it, and he always washed the apples before setting them in the box. He washed them slowly, one by one, like a ritual. "Clean water, good fruit, right day," he said to himself. While working, he talked to his father, even if he couldn't see him. "Dad, today I'm gonna sell everything. Grandma needs the new medicine. They say it helps her sleep better." And deep down, he believed his father could hear him. Luan never complained about life. He'd learned early that complaining didn't fill your plate. When the heat got too strong, he splashed river water on his face and kept going. When it rained, he took shelter under the same tree where his father used to rest. And when no one bought anything, he brought the apples back home and made jam to sell the next day. Once, a truck driver stopped and asked, "How old are you, kid?" 12. "And what do you want to be when you grow up?" Luan thought for a few seconds. "I want to fix engines, like my dad did." The man smiled. "Then you'll have to study." "I do study, sometimes at night. The teacher lets me stay late when there's still light at school." "You're lucky, kid. I wish I'd believed in school when I was your age." "It's not luck, it's persistence." The answer echoed in the trucker's head long after the engine disappeared around the bend. At the end of the day, Luan came home with his cart half empty, but his heart full. His grandmother waited on the porch, a blanket over her shoulders. "Did you sell well, my boy?" "I did, Grandma. Enough for the medicine and the bread. And you didn't skip your meal, right?" "I ate, yes. The neighbor gave me a piece of cake. He always took one apple out of the box, the prettiest one, and handed it to her. 'This one's for you.'" Donna Teresa smiled and stroked his hair. "You make your father proud, even if you don't know it." At night, after their simple dinner, the two would sit by the old radio. The static-filled sound brought news they barely understood, but that didn't matter. The ritual did. Listening together was enough. Once they heard a report about business people and million-dollar charities. "These folks help a lot of people, don't they, Grandma?" "Not always, Luan. Some help to be seen. Others help because they feel." "And how do you tell the difference?" "Oh, my boy, you can see it in their eyes. The ones who truly help look at you. The ones who only want attention look at their watch." That night, before bed, Luan opened a small wooden box under his bed. Inside were his father's few keepsakes, a faded photo of them together, a broken watch, and a letter. The paper was yellowed, some words erased with time, but one sentence could still be read clearly. "If life ever takes you away from the truth, don't forget, the truth always finds its way back." Luan closed the box gently, like someone guarding a map. The next morning, he woke up early again. The wind felt different. The air smelled like change. His grandma coughed more than usual. "You okay, Grandma?" "I'm fine, my boy. Just tired." "Tired is a choice, remember?" he joked, repeating the words of the rich woman who had humiliated him. Donna Teresa laughed softly, not catching the reference. "And where did you learn that?" "From a lady who drove by yesterday. She said some funny things." "Rich?" "Too much, but she looked sad. There are people so full of money, they forget what peace feels like." Luan stayed quiet. But inside him, something new had begun to grow, a strange curiosity to understand why that woman, with so much wealth, seemed so empty. And so, between the dust of the road and the distant murmur of the river, fate started stitching together a reunion neither of them could have imagined. Because sometimes the past doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right moment to return. The sky was heavy that morning. Clouds gathered thick like something was about to happen. The dirt road, the same one where days earlier Helena had stopped her car, now looked narrower, more alive, as if it were expecting something. Helena was coming back from a meeting at a nearby ranch, irritated. The driver kept his eyes on the road while the bodyguard dozed in the front seat. Everything seemed normal until the dry pop of a bursting tire shattered the quiet. The car jolted, lost balance, and came to an abrupt stop, throwing up clouds of dust. "For heaven's sake!" Helena shouted, slapping the dashboard. The driver got out. "Tires blown, Mom. And the spare looks flat, too." Helena groaned. "Impossible. This car was serviced yesterday." "Yes, Mom, but this road's tricky. Must have hit some wire." She checked her watch. An important meeting in less than an hour. No phone signal, no cars passing by. The hot wind whipped the dust around, and the sun began to sting the cracked road. "How long to fix this?" "The compressor's not working. I'll try to swap it manually, but it'll take a while." "How long, Carlos?" 40 minutes, maybe more." 40 minutes. "I don't have that time." She stepped out of the car, pacing in frustration. Then she heard a familiar voice. "Need some help, Mom?" She turned, and there he was, Luan, the same boy, the same wooden cart, the same red apples under the cloth. The sunlight hit from the side, making the fruits look almost alive. Helena froze. Somehow fate had circled back. "You again?" "Yes, ma'am. Same road, remember? It always comes back to us." The phrase dropped like an echo from the past. The bodyguard, suspicious, stepped forward. "Back off, kid. Don't go near the car." But Helena raised her hand. "Let him." Luan walked up to the blown tire, studying it closely. "If you want, I can help. My dad taught me a few tricks before he stopped mid-sentence. "Before what?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Before he left." The boy crouched down, placed his hand on the hot rim, and spoke with a calmness far beyond his age. "The tier's small. If I patch it from the inside with tape and wrap it tight with a wet cloth, it can last until you reach the city." The driver's eyes widened. "A wet cloth? That'll never hold." "It will. You just need to balance the weight on the side and avoid holes." Helena watched him. He spoke with a quiet confidence, with a spark in his eyes she rarely saw even in her engineers. "You have water?" the boy asked. She hesitated. "In the car." "Why?" "To wet the cloth. And for you, you look thirsty." Helena blinked, taken aback. No one had spoken to her like that in years. No fear, no flattery, just honesty. She handed him the bottle. The boy tore a piece of the rag that covered the apples and started working on his improvised fix. The driver and the bodyguard watched in disbelief as he moved with steady, practiced hands. Those small hands seemed to know exactly what to do. "Where'd you learn that?" Helena asked. "From my dad. He fixed trucks. Said nothing's impossible if you understand how things work inside." "And what happened to him?" Luan smiled faintly. "Life got hard. One day he went to work and never came back." "And your mother?" "She passed when I was a baby, but my grandma's always taken care of me." Silence. Helena swallowed hard. For a moment, she saw something familiar in his face, a calmness that reminded her of someone she couldn't name. "All done, Mom. You can test it." The driver turned the key. The car rolled a few meters. No sound. The tire held. "How did you do that?" the bodyguard asked, astonished. "It's all about knowing the balance between weight and air. The rest is just equilibrium." Helena stared at him. "Equilibrium," she repeated softly, as if the word meant something deeper to her. "How much do I owe you?" she asked, opening her purse. "You don't owe me anything, Ma'am." "What? You helped me. I want to pay." "No need. I just did what I could." "Then at least take this." She pulled out a folded bill and tried to hand it to him, but the boy stepped back. "I'd rather you buy an apple. That's my work." Helena stopped. That simple sentence completely disarmed her. She walked over to the cart and lifted the cloth. The apples were perfect, shining under the sun. She picked one up. "This one's beautiful. That one's from the oldest tree, the one my dad planted." "And why sell something that means so much to you?" "Because it's what I have to give." Helena said nothing. Luan smiled and added, "My dad used to say, if you hold on to everything you love, you end up with no room to love anything new." The words hit deep. For a moment, she wanted to ask more about his father, where he lived, who he was, but something inside told her not to push. She paid for the apples without arguing about the price. The driver fixed the tire, and the car was ready to go. "Thank you, kid," Helena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're welcome, ma'am. And thank you for buying." She stepped into the car, but before she could close the door, Luan said, "Oh, and don't forget to check the water by the road. It's been acting strange after the rain." Helena turned slowly. That same sentence, the same warning, the same tone of genuine care. As the car drove off, she looked in the rearview mirror. The boy stood in the middle of the road beside his cart, the wind lifting the cloth that covered the apples. For some reason, Helena felt her throat tighten. The road stretched endlessly, but her heart stayed there, in that simple image, in that boy who asked for nothing but gave everything. The driver broke the silence. "Smart kid, huh?" "Very. He reminds me of your husband back when he was young. Did everything with his own hands." Helena froze. She turned her face toward the window, her eyes filling with tears. "Don't talk about him." "Sorry, ma'am." The car kept moving, but inside her something had already shifted. Her pride began to crack, and fate, patient as ever, simply smiled, because it still had one last card to play, the hidden link between that boy and the past she had tried to erase. That night, when Helena got home, she placed the apple she had bought on the table and stared at it for minutes. She couldn't explain it, but something about that simple fruit felt heavier than gold. She just didn't know that the boy's father carried a name that once stood for loyalty inside her own company, and that the threads of the past were about to twist around her present in a devastating way. That night, Helena couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, and the ticking of the living room clock mocked her insomnia. The apple the boy had sold her still sat on the glass table, untouched, gleaming as if waiting to be seen. She poured herself a glass of wine, but the taste had lost all meaning. She sat on the couch, eyes fixed on the fruit. Every detail, the shine of the skin, the small scratch on the side, its pure simplicity, spoke louder than all the words she'd heard in meetings and dinners through the years. She picked up the apple. The cold touch awakened something, a familiar smell, a flash of memory. A man in a blue jumpsuit laughing, holding a toolbox. "If the engine stops, it's because you forgot to listen to it first." She froze. That voice, that phrase. It belonged to an old employee, someone who had worked years ago at her husband's company. Helena stood up quickly and went to her office. She rummaged through drawers, old folders, yellowed files. At last, she found an envelope labeled Engineering Department, Case R. Alves. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were copies of reports and a letter signed by her husband. Employee Ricardo Alves was dismissed for embezzlement and disappeared before the investigation was completed. Helena remembered the name. Ricardo, the mechanic everyone used to praise, the man who said he worked with his heart. She recalled one day in particular, the day her husband came home furious, claiming someone had sabotaged an important project. "One of my men betrayed me," he'd said, "and I'll make sure he pays dearly." Back then, Helena never questioned him. She believed everything he said. But now, staring at the name, something didn't fit. Ricardo Alves. Alves. The surname echoed in her head like a distant bell. The boy, Luan Alves. Helena covered her mouth with her hand. It couldn't be a coincidence. She turned on her computer and searched the old company archives. The system still held records from that time. There it was. Ricardo A., mechanical engineer. Model employee, in charge of vehicle maintenance for the Foundation's fleet. She clicked History. The last entry was a defense letter that had never been attached to the internal file. It began, "Mr. Gustavo and Mrs. Helena, I know this is all a misunderstanding. I would never steal from the company. All I did was cover for a mistake made by the purchasing manager. I'm ready to prove it if you'll let me explain." Helena leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. The letter had been ignored. Her husband had hidden it. She kept reading. "I have a small son and an elderly mother. Everything I do is for them. Please don't take away my chance to clear my name." Her vision blurred. She closed her eyes, but the image of Luan came rushing back. The dirty hands, the calm eyes, the pride in his voice when he spoke of his father. The boy selling apples was the son of the man her husband had ruined. A knot tightened in her throat. The memories hit her all at once. The day her husband celebrated higher profits, saying he'd gotten rid of the rats in the company. The letter she saw but never read. The desperate look of a man being escorted by security out the gate. "My God, what have we done?" she whispered. She stood up, shaking, paced the room. The boy's words echoed again. "My dad went to work one day and never came back." Now she finally understood why. Ricardo hadn't run away. He had been humiliated, accused unjustly, and maybe driven to despair. Helena sat down again and covered her face with her hands. The weight of guilt began to blend with something she hadn't felt in years, real remorse. Then a sharp memory cut through her mind. Back in the early years of her marriage, she and her husband had visited the company's workshop. Ricardo had been there, covered in grease, but smiling. "Mrs. Helena, your car's all ready. And if I may say, you've got a good eye for business. The way you talk to us workers makes us feel like people." She had smiled back. A real smile, rare, honest. But over time she had become just like her husband. Cold, proud, blind. She snapped back to the present at the sound of the wind rattling the windows. The apple still sat on the table, and now it carried a meaning that stung. Helena picked up the phone and called her assistant. "Pedro, I need you to find an address for me." "Whose, Mom?" "A boy named Luan Alves. He lives near the rural road at kilometer 23. "May I ask why?" "Because it's time to fix a mistake that isn't his." She hung up before he could answer. Over the next few days, she buried herself in old records. She requested access to the financial reports from that year and called in the company's chief accountant, a man already close to retirement. "Tell me the truth. Did Ricardo Alves steal anything?" The man lowered his head. "No, ma'am, but your husband ordered us to close the case and get rid of his letter." "Why?" "Because if the board found out the manager was to blame, Mr. Gustavo would have been fired, and he couldn't stand that." Helena felt the ground vanish beneath her. The empire she had helped build was stained by an injustice that had cost a man's life and a boy's childhood. That night, when she looked again at the apple, she cried. She truly cried. She cried for Ricardo, for Luan, for the grandmother still waiting for a son who would never return, and for herself, who had spent a lifetime confusing power with worth. Amid the tears, a decision ripened. She couldn't erase the past, but maybe she could return what had been taken. "I'm going to them," she said aloud, facing her reflection in the window. "Even if the whole world has to know what really happened." Outside, rain began to fall. And for the first time, Helena didn't feel untouchable. She felt human. Meanwhile, miles away, Luan stood on the porch of their small house, feeling the first raindrops on his face. His grandmother coughed in the next room. "It's okay, Grandma. Rain's good. It washes what needs to be cleaned." Neither of them knew it yet, but the past was on its way, and with it, the chance for redemption that would change their lives forever. Helena's car rolled slowly along the dirt road, kicking up a thin cloud of dust that mixed with the morning fog. The sun hadn't yet broken through the clouds, and the air carried a heavy stillness, as if the road itself knew what was about to happen. Inside the vehicle, she sat quietly, hands trembling on her lap. The driver sensed the tension and said nothing. With each passing kilometer, her heartbeat quickened. She was on her way to meet the boy, but deep down, she knew she was really heading toward the trial of her own past. When the car reached the village, Helena felt something she hadn't in years: fear. Simple houses, cracked walls, makeshift fences, barefoot children playing with old tires, women washing clothes in stone sinks, men pushing wooden carts. All of it so far from her world of marble and glass. Some residents stopped to stare at the expensive car. Its metallic shine didn't belong there. "Who's that woman?" someone murmured. "Probably a politician or some landowner. Too rich to show up here for anything good." Helena stepped out, adjusting the scarf at her neck, not out of vanity, but to hide the shame of who she was in that place. A boy recognized her first. "Look, it's the lady with the black car!" The voices spread quickly. Soon everyone was watching her, as if seeing a ghost. Luan came running, his apple cart behind him, the same squeaky wheel complaining. "Mrs. Helena?" She took a deep breath. "Hi, Luan." His smile was pure, genuine, free of resentment. "Didn't think you'd come back here." "Neither did I." "Here to buy more apples?" "No, I came to return something that was taken." Before she could say more, a harsh cough came from inside the house. "Luan, close the door, boy. There's a draft." The elderly voice made Helena shiver. He ran to the porch and called, "Grandma, it's the lady I told you about, the one with the car." Donna Teresa appeared, leaning on a cane, her face marked by time, but her eyes still alive. When her gaze met Helena's, time stopped. For several seconds, no one spoke. The old woman clutched the scarf in her trembling hands. I know that face." Helena swallowed hard. "Maybe, ma'am. I came to ask if I could talk to you both." Neighbors began to gather. A group of women whispered, "The rich only show up when they feel guilty. Bet she's here for some photo in the paper." Helena pretended not to hear. She stepped inside with Luan beside her. The house was simple. An old table, 2 chairs, a stove that smelled of wood smoke, and on the wall a framed photo of a man in a blue jumpsuit, smiling wide, kind eyes staring back. She stopped. The world seemed to spin in slow motion. "That's your father, isn't it?" Luan nodded, proud. "Yes, Ricardo Alves. The best man that ever lived." Helena's knees weakened. She grabbed the chair before collapsing. Donna Teresa stepped closer, her eyes heavy with memory and pain. "Now I know who you are." Helena lifted her face, tears barely held back. I didn't come here to justify myself. I came to tell the truth." The old woman sat down slowly and folded her hands. "His name was destroyed. They said he was a thief, that he had decency, but no integrity. That's what your husband did to him. And you stood by him, didn't you?" Helena closed her eyes. "Yes." "Then tell me, rich lady, what brought you here now? Guilt or remorse?" "The truth," she answered, her voice rough. "I found out he was accused unfairly. My husband hid the evidence. Ricardo didn't steal a thing. He tried to protect the company's name and paid for it with his life." The grandmother drew in a shaky breath, emotion tangled with anger. "He died trying to prove his innocence. Left home with proof in his hands and never came back. Left me and his boy behind, and you people, with all that money, never once looked back." Helena wept. "I didn't know. I was blind. I believed the lies told to me, and now I live with the weight of that." The silence was broken by Luan's voice. "My father was good. Everyone here knows that. He used to say the truth would show up one day." Helena looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. "And he was right." Donna Teresa brushed her hand over the boy's cheek. "You shouldn't have come, young lady. Your presence just reopens wounds." "I deserve that," said Helena. "But you deserve to know he'll have justice. I'll clear his name, publicly, and I'll make sure this story is never repeated." People who had gathered outside began stepping in, curious. A woman holding a child spoke loudly. "What's she gonna do? Throw money at our pain?" Another added, "Rich people think money erases everything." Helena stood up, meeting their eyes. "I didn't come to bring money. I came to bring what I'd lost. Shame. And if there's still time, redemption." Her words hung in the air. Something in her tone silenced the murmurs. Some looked down, others simply stared. Luan gazed at her and asked softly, "Why are you crying, ma'am?" "Because your father didn't deserve what happened, and because it took me too long to see what really matters." Donna Teresa picked up Ricardo's photo and set it on the table. "Look closely at him. Because of your husband's ambition, I lost my son. And yet he used to say, 'They're not bad, mother. just blind. Helena covered her face with both hands. There was no hiding the shame anymore. The tears came freely. The old woman, though frail, placed a gentle hand on Helena's shoulder. "He'd forgive you, you know. He was too good to hold anger." Helena fell to her knees. "I don't deserve forgiveness." "Then start deserving it. Do something right, while there's still time." Luan took her hand, innocent, and said, "If you clear my dad's name, he'll be able to rest, right?" Helena nodded with effort. "Yes, Luan, he will, and I'll do it, I promise." Outside, the clouds opened. A soft rain began to fall. Children ran laughing through the puddles, and the sound of them broke the tension in the air. Helena looked out the window and saw the boys' apple cart. The cloth was soaked, but the fruits still shone, as if the rain were washing away all the dust from the road. And in that instant, she understood. The water the boy always spoke of wasn't just about the river. It was about the soul, about cleansing what was dirty inside. Helena left the house with her face wet, from rain and from tears. The people stepped aside to let her pass. There was no arrogance left. The woman who had arrived as a distant figure now walked away, stripped of pride. As she approached the car, Luan ran after her and called out, "Mrs. Helena!" She turned. "Thank you for not giving up on coming." Helena smiled through red, tired eyes. "I should be the one thanking you, Luan. You're the one who brought me back to myself." She got into the car and looked once more at the village through the mirror. The houses, the people, the boy, everything her money had never been able to buy. Humanity. When the car disappeared down the road, Donna Teresa looked up at the sky and whispered, "Now, my son, now maybe you can rest." And the rain grew heavier, as if the heavens themselves confirmed the promise. The sound of the rain still echoed in Helena's mind when she woke up the next morning. But this time, something was different. For the first time in years, she didn't feel rush or guilt. She felt purpose. She sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. The sunlight filtered through the window, glinting off the marble floor. That same light that once reflected her pride now revealed something else, the will to begin again. She opened the wardrobe, looked over dozens of expensive dresses, and chose the simplest one, pulled her hair back, left the heels behind, and stepped out with a bare face. "Mom, the board meeting's at 10, her assistant reminded her on the phone. "I know, and that's where everything will start." On the way there, the driver noticed her silence. "Everything all right, ma'am?" For the first time, yes. When she entered the company building, everyone noticed something different. The woman who used to walk the halls like a storm now moved slowly, steady, calm, and unshakably human. The chief financial officer whispered to a colleague, "She looks like a different person." "Probably plotting something big," the other replied. But what Helena was about to do wasn't a plan, it was a confession. The meeting started on time. The oval room, made of glass and steel, was filled with stern faces in suits, expecting the usual cold speech about profits and goals. But Helena didn't open the charts. She didn't even glance at the numbers. Instead, she took out a folded sheet of paper and said quietly, "Before any report, I need to tell you a story." The room fell silent. She continued, "Many years ago, a man was wronged by this company. His name was Ricardo Alves. He was accused of embezzlement, fired, and disgraced. The real culprit was my husband." Eyes met across the table. A wave of murmurs followed. One director stood up, alarmed. "Madam, this is not a matter for the board." "Yes, it is, because this is the same board where the lie began. And it's here that it ends." She laid the documents on the table, Ricardo's letter, the manipulated reports, the forged signatures. "For years, I lived off an empire built on the ruin of an innocent man. That ends today. From this moment, this company will officially recognize Ricardo Alves's innocence and compensate his family." The legal director's eyes widened. "That would mean admitting public guilt, ma'am. It could cause a PR disaster." "Then let it. The truth always causes crisis for those who live off appearances." The words hit like a hammer. Helena stood up. I don't want to be remembered as the woman who inherited a fortune. I want to be remembered as the woman who gave back what was stolen." She walked out, leaving behind a silence heavier than sound. That same week, Helena met with a lawyer specializing in old labor cases. "I want to reopen the case of Ricardo Alves." The man frowned. "Mrs. Helena, reopening a file closed for over 12 years is nearly impossible. Nearly impossible isn't impossible, and I'm not asking, I'm making it happen." The lawyer exhaled. "All right, but if we do this, the press will find out. Let them. Maybe it's time the world heard the truth." The news exploded like a bomb across headlines. "Powerful businesswoman admits husband's wrongdoing, seeks justice for falsely accused employee." Some called it noble, others called it a publicity stunt. But those who looked into Helena's calm, steady eyes knew there was no strategy, only release. Reporters crowded the entrance of the company. "Mrs. Helena, is it true you're creating a foundation in his name?" "Yes," she said, "because a man's honor is worth more than any fortune." The board tried to stop her. "You'll destroy your reputation." "I've done worse. I lived with a fake one." Meanwhile, in the small village, Luan listened to the news on his grandmother's old radio. "Grandma, it's her, Mrs. Helena. They're saying on TV that Dad was innocent." Donna Teresa covered her face, stunned. "My God, he did it. The truth finally came home." Her tears came quietly, but her smile was full of peace. Luan ran to the road, pushing his cart, shouting into the wind, "Dad, she's keeping her promise." In the days that followed, Helena immersed herself in paperwork, interviews, and memories. Every page she read reopened a wound, but also healed one. She discovered that Ricardo had left behind a project, a community workshop to train young workers. The land still existed, overgrown with weeds. "This is where the foundation begins," she told the lawyer. And so construction started. New signs were raised. A name was carved into them: Ricardo Alves Institute, Education, Work, and Dignity. Helena oversaw everything closely. No cameras, no speeches. Just the quiet sense that, for the first time, she was giving back something that mattered. One afternoon, as she watched the workers build, a small car stopped at the gate. Luan got out, pushing his wooden cart. "Brought these for the opening," he said, smiling. "You like apples, right?" Helena laughed through tears. "I do, but what I like most is knowing there are still people like you." He looked around, amazed. "All this, it's for the people here?" "Yes, your father dreamed of it. Now it's our dream." Luan went quiet, looking over the land. "My dad used to say whatever we plant, time makes grow." "And he was right," Helena said softly. "But to plant for real, we've got to clear the stones first." They stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. There was no distance between them anymore, only a bridge built out of regret, forgiveness, and truth. In that moment, Helena felt something inside her finally fade away, the fear of seeming weak. Because weakness, she realized, isn't in admitting guilt, it's in pretending you have none. Days later, the foundation opened. Journalists, villagers, officials, everyone was there. Helena stepped onto the stage with Luan and Donna Teresa beside her. She spoke only a few words. "Today we return truth to the one who always had it, and hope to those who should never have lost it." A long, heartfelt applause filled the courtyard. Donna Teresa cried. Luan smiled, holding an apple in his hand, the same simple symbol that had once carried the weight of an entire story. And when the event ended, he walked up to her and whispered, "Mrs. Helena, my dad must be proud of you right now." She looked up at the sky and replied softly, "I hope he is, because everything I've done, Luan, was for him and for you." That night, alone in her office, Helena took out one last sheet of paper. It was a letter, the one Ricardo had written before he died, now marked by time. She placed it inside a frame and hung it on the foundation wall. Below it, she wrote a line that would become the Institute's motto: "The truth may arrive late, but it is never lost." And in that moment, She felt that she had finally started to find herself, but destiny still held one final gesture, one that would turn redemption into eternity. Morning broke clear, the sky spotless. It was as if even the weather had chosen to honor the moment. The Foundation's headquarters, once a forgotten plot of land, now pulsed with life. Children laughed, volunteers set up tents, and journalists adjusted their cameras, searching for the perfect angle. At the main gate, a white banner fluttered in the wind. Official opening, Ricardo Alves Institute. Helena arrived early. She wore simple clothes, her hair tied back in a bun, her expression calm, nothing like the woman from months before. There was no rush, no arrogance, only peace. The driver opened the door, but she chose to step out alone. She walked slowly through the courtyard, noticing every detail: the freshly planted garden, the workshop rebuilt from the old shed, the classrooms painted with bright murals made by village children. Luan was running between volunteers, helping carry boxes. "Careful with those tools, kid," one worker joked. "Don't worry, my dad taught me to handle heavy stuff," he replied, smiling. When he saw Helena, he stopped and waved from afar. She waved back gently, her chest tightening with emotion. Soon cars began to arrive, reporters, locals and city officials, all curious about the powerful woman who had exposed her own past to clear the name of a forgotten man. One journalist approached her. "Mrs. Helena, are you sure you want to speak publicly about the case? Your husband's name is still very well known." She didn't hesitate. "That's exactly why I have to speak. Silence protects the lie. The truth sets us free." The ceremony began. A children's choir from the village opened with a simple, touching song. Every voice seemed to carry part of the story: the pain, the forgiveness, the hope. Helena stepped onto the stage. For a moment, the microphone trembled in her hands. But when she looked out and saw Donna Teresa in the front row, eyes glistening, clutching a blue handkerchief, she found her strength. "For many years," she began, "I thought success was about winning. Today, I've learned that real success is about giving back. This place exists because a man was wronged, a man who believed in work, in truth, and in dignity." The audience was utterly silent. Ricardo Alves was accused of a crime he did not commit. "And because of my blindness and the ambition of the man I loved, he lost everything: his job, his honor, and his life. I stand here before all of you to ask forgiveness, and more than that, to give his name back the respect it should have never lost." She paused. Tears began to fall, but they weren't tears of weakness, they were tears of redemption. Today, justice officially recognizes that Ricardo Alves was innocent. The court signed the decision yesterday, and this institute, which bears his name, will teach young people, like his son, that character is the greatest wealth anyone can have. The crowd erupted in applause. Donna Teresa was crying openly. Luan, moved, looked at Helena with genuine admiration. A reporter, his voice trembling, asked, "Mrs. Helena, why did you decide to do this, knowing it could stain your own name?" She smiled. "Because my name means nothing if my conscience is dirty." The applause grew louder, filling every corner of the courtyard. After the speech, Helena stepped down from the stage. Luan approached, holding a red apple in his hands. "This is for you," he said. She took it, surprised. "Why?" "Because my dad used to say that when someone truly changes, the world finds a way to show it." Helena smiled, tears in her eyes. "And what does this apple mean to you, Luan?" "It means a person's worth isn't in what they have. It's in what they carry inside." The crowd around them heard it, and a reverent silence spread. It was as if the boy had summed up the entire story in a single sentence. Helena knelt in front of him, placed her hands on his shoulders and said, "You have the richest heart I've ever known. Your father would be so proud." He smiled. "I know. You did what he couldn't. You made the world listen." They hugged, long, real, silent. People applauded, and even the journalists lowered their cameras. It was one of those rare moments when even those used to stories knew they were witnessing something true. After the ceremony, Helena walked to the inauguration plaque. She ran her fingers across the name engraved in metal: Ricardo Alves, honor, truth, and work. Tears fell onto the letters and she whispered, "Now your name is clean. And I finally have peace." Donna Teresa slowly approached. "He would forgive you, my child, and I forgive you too." Helena squeezed her wrinkled hands. "Thank you. But forgiveness isn't my reward. It's my chance to start over." By the end of the day, when everyone had gone, the courtyard was empty. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold. Helena walked to the garden, where the children had planted a new apple tree in Ricardo's memory. The leaves swayed with the soft breeze, and the young trunk leaned slightly, as if paying respect. She rested her hand on a branch and closed her eyes. For a moment, Ricardo's voice seemed to whisper through her memory. "If you understand the sound of an engine, you understand the heart of life." Helena smiled. "I took too long to listen, Ricardo, but now I understand." She placed the apple Luan had given her at the base of the tree. And there, under the same sky that once witnessed injustice, she sealed her promise with the simplicity of a gesture. A journalist's camera, still recording the final shots, captured the scene quietly, without interrupting. And the next day, the headlines spread across the country. "The woman who once stopped her car to humiliate a boy has now stopped the world to honor his father." In the village, children played around the foundation, now alive and full of color. Luan helped his grandmother hang flowers at the entrance while gazing at the horizon. "See that, Dad? I told you, the truth always finds its way home." And in the reflection of the apple he held, the sun drew the same shine Helena had seen months before, the glow that appears when justice finally finds its way back. Months passed after the inauguration of the Ricardo Alves Institute. What had once been just a project had become a symbol of rebirth. Children and teenagers filled the workshops with laughter, learning mechanics, electronics, sewing, cooking, everything Ricardo had once dreamed of teaching. Helena visited the place every week. She was no longer called Mrs. Helena, but Aunt Helena. She walked without bodyguards, without a driver, her face relaxed, her hands busy with work. She cared for the details, helped with the classes, and often had lunch there, sitting among the students. Luan, now wearing a new uniform, studied and also taught. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave. His grandmother, Donna Teresa, was slowly recovering. With her health improving, she spent her afternoons sitting under the shade of the apple tree in the courtyard, watching her grandson live the life her son never could. One afternoon, Helena approached her. "Donna Teresa, may I sit with you for a while?" "Of course, my dear. There's room here for anyone who wants to rest their heart." They stayed quiet for a moment, listening to the wind move through the leaves. "Did you know this apple tree grew faster than normal?" the old woman said, smiling. "Maybe because it was watered with tears of regret and hope," Helena replied. Donna Teresa looked at her with warmth. "You've changed, child. Money doesn't move you anymore, your soul does." Helena smiled, gazing at the horizon. "I had to lose everything inside to finally learn what it means to have." Luan ran up to them, his hands covered in grease. "Look, Aunt Helena, we fixed the foundation's truck engine. It's working." She stood up, clapping. "See that? Your father's legacy lives on through you." "Yeah, and through you too," he said, wiping his hands on his pants. "My dad used to say the world only changes when people have the courage to admit they were wrong." Helena nodded, and he was right. "Because mistakes only destroy us when we pretend they don't exist." That night, the institute was empty. Helena walked through the main hall, where an entire wall was covered with photos. Ricardo's face, Luan's smile, the children's hands building the future. At the center, the metal letters read, "The truth may arrive late, but it is never lost." She stood there in silence, the distant sound of crickets mixed with the soft rustle of the wind. She took one of the apples from the basket by the entrance. It was tradition to keep fresh fruit there, and sat on a wooden bench. She bit slowly, tasting the simple sweetness. In that moment, she realized how much that flavor meant. It was the same taste that had made her stop her car months ago, the same one that had started it all. But now, the taste no longer carried shame. It carried gratitude. Gratitude for that boy, for that grandmother, and for a man who, even after death, continued teaching others how to live with honor. She smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me what it truly means to be rich." Weeks later, the Institute received an award from the local government. Helena stepped onto the stage again, this time with Luan and Donna Teresa by her side. When the host announced her name, she raised a hand and said, "This award isn't mine, it's his," and pointed to Ricardo's portrait hanging behind her. The entire auditorium rose in applause. Luan, shy but proud, held up an apple like a trophy. Helena laughed and whispered to him, "Now you're the one teaching the world, kid." He grinned. "No, Aunt Helena, you're the one who finally learned to listen to it." Months later, a television report showed how the Institute had changed the lives of hundreds of young people. "Thanks to the courage of a woman who chose to face her own past," said the narrator. On the screen, images appeared. Luan teaching other boys, Donna Teresa laughing with the children, and Helena watering the apple tree that had grown strong, its roots deep in the same ground where truth, at last, had taken root again. And as the images played, a narrator's voice closed the report. The story of Helena and Luan reminds us that life always offers a second chance, but not everyone has the courage to take it. The truth may arrive late, but when it does, it changes everything. Years later, Luan had grown up. He became a mechanical engineer, just as his father had dreamed. He worked at the Institute itself, teaching young people and overseeing community projects. Donna Teresa was no longer among them, but her smile lived in every corner of that place. And Helena, now with grey hair, still came every morning, not as a boss, but as a student of life. One day, Luan walked into her office carrying a wooden box. "Aunt Helena, look what I found." She opened it. Inside was a small metal apple with an engraving that read, "For the one who had the courage to change. We made it in the workshop. It's our gift to you." Helena held the object, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank you, my dear. This is the most beautiful inheritance I could ever receive." That same evening, she walked to the apple tree, now tall, lush, and heavy with fruit. The wind blew softly, and the rustling of the leaves sounded like music. Helena pressed her face gently against the trunk and closed her eyes. There, she felt peace. The story that began with arrogance ended with humility. The woman who once stopped her car to humiliate a boy now stopped the world to listen to what truly mattered, the sound of the heart. Before leaving, she placed the metal apple at the base of the tree and whispered, "You were right, Luan. A person's worth isn't in what they own, but in what they carry inside." The sun set slowly, and the shadow of the apple tree stretched across the garden like an embrace. Children ran through the courtyard. The wind played with her hair, and for the first time in her entire life, Helena felt light, because she finally understood that true wealth isn't about keeping, it's about mending, loving, and giving back. And so, the woman who once stopped only to buy an apple ended up finding in the simplicity of a boy by the roadside the rarest flavor in the world, the taste of redemption.